Okay. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good evening to Smriti ji. Um, Welcome everyone to the third session of our training. Thank you all for joining. I know it's early in the morning. Really appreciate everyone coming here on time. We've been posting materials for all the sessions. Hope everyone saw those. We did receive the quizzes turned in from a few of you. Please keep it up. I think it'll be good if more people participate. There will be an opportunity to review this material and test your understanding of all this in the upcoming sessions. And today morning, maybe we can just start with a little bit of that, Smriti ji, and then how we want to assign tasks to people, and how we want to kind of evaluate the understanding of this material. And then Smriti ji will continue with the third session after that. Okay. Yeah. Over to you, Smriti ji.
The first part, what did you mention? Sorry.
No, I think there was some discussion about.
Yeah, I thought we can do it at the end. I'll just go ahead with the session towards
Okay,
the end.
no problem.
Discuss.
Yeah.
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 Namaste, everyone. Welcome back to the session. So this is again going to be another power-packed session. Like we've been packing so many concepts in the previous sessions. But as you review the material, you will get more and more comfortable with all the vocabulary, the terminologies, the jargons, and everything associated with Indian knowledge systems. Of course, when we do the same thing with young learners, we would probably not pack so much. So just to recap what we have been looking at till now, we've been looking at the Ashtadasha Vidyasthana in terms of the four Vedas, the six Vedangas, the four Gupta Vedas, and the four others, including Nyaya, Mimamsa, and all that. The six Darshanas, we briefly looked at the six philosophical systems which are based on the Vedas: Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. And while talking about the history of Indian education, we had looked at the Angus Madison report in terms of how Bharat was performing at certain point in time and a clear-cut decline as the invasions and colonizations started. We also looked at a summary of Professor Dharampal's work, The Beautiful Tree, which talks about the details that are present in the British archives about the Indian education system and how inclusive it was and how it catered to both boys and girls and belonging to different castes and communities. And of course, in terms of the various types of schools that were running and the knowledge systems that were offered as part of the schooling system and how widespread it was. And there is also we also looked at how the colonization sort of led to the decline of the Indian education ecosystem when infrastructure became more important. When people were forced to look at one profession, which is basically serving the British offices as an important or as the only probably career pathway. And then the entire education system was tuned to that, because of which a lot of vocations and a lot of industries lost scope at that point in time. We also looked a little bit about the higher education institutions, Takshashila, Nalanda, Kashi, and Kanchipuram. And also a little bit on the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita on education. What is Sattvic education? What is Tamasic education? What is Rajasic education? And how the Upanishads talk about when a student graduates, what are some of the duties of the student. We also looked at the lakshanas of a vidyarthi in terms of, the kakacheshta, bakodhyanim, shwananidra, alpahari, and grihatyagi. The qualities that need to be enshrined by a student. And also, there are some qualities spoken of in Ayurvedic texts about the qualities of a teacher. That also we looked at. The slides have been shared, of course. And what we did also at Anadi is we compiled a list of IKS concepts that one can know, which we put up as a blog post, which again I've shared it in Google Classroom. That will give an overview, at least the names of whatever concepts that are there as part of Sanatana Dharma and IKS. This is what we looked at. Okay. So in this session, we will be looking at the theory of knowledge, since we are also talking about the philosophy and pedagogy. We will be looking at the theory of knowledge. Don't worry if it's a bit heavy, but the thing is that, especially as adults, if we know the background aspects of these knowledge systems, then we can go into the details of the various knowledge systems very comfortably. I hear a notification sound. Is there a question or something?
Oh, some people were just wondering if there was an echo in your voice, but it looks like there's no echo. I think it's localized for them.
Fine. Okay. So the theory of knowledge, when we look at in the modern context, it's a branch of philosophy that explores the nature, scope, and what is the limit of human knowledge and human pursuit. When we look at the books that talk about the theory of knowledge, about philosophy of science and all that, those books deeply examine the way in which we acquire knowledge, what are the various sources of knowledge, and what is belief and what is the truth, and how to draw a line, how to verify, how can that knowledge be validated and all that. And, we have been talking about epistemology, which is the source of knowledge, questioning what it means to know something and how do we know that, right? So epistemology is basically that branch of philosophy that studies the nature of knowledge, the sources of knowledge, the validity of knowledge, and exploring how we know what we know, right? Suppose, this reminds me of how we know what we know. This sentence reminds me of, there was this movie that won the Oscars, right? So that is, I think, it was called Slumdog Millionaire. That particular boy wins that Kaun Banega Crorepati, and then he traces as to how he came to know what he knows, right? Then he traces the different sources and different circumstances because of which he came to know about various things, right? So similarly, when we trace back as to what we know, like how do we know, how can we identify a mango tree to be a mango tree, right? Then if you reflect on the process of learning, when you were a child, you were shown a picture of the mango tree or a mango fruit or whatever it is. And then you came to know about the qualities of or the features of that particular tree and fruit. And then you stored it in memory. And then in real life, you were shown a mango tree. And then of course, now children who live in the US may not be able to see a mango tree unless it's available in some part of the country. But nevertheless, so then what happens to that child? They would have seen it in the picture, but they wouldn't have seen it in reality. Probably they come back to India and then they see a mango tree, right? So, but when we grow up in India, we see a mango tree, we already have something in memory. We compare it with what is there in memory, and then I identify that to be a mango tree, right? So all these processes, the memory, the cognition, the direct perception through the senses, all this happens as part of identifying something. So if you ask me, how did I know a mango tree? I would say probably my parents taught me, my teachers taught me, my textbook was there. I have also seen a macro tree. So there are different sources of knowledge that I have come to know from, right? And ontology is a branch of philosophy that explores the nature of being, existence. What is this reality? How to classify and categorize this reality according to a particular framework or lens, right? So when we look at any philosophical system, whether it is Nyaya, Vaisheshika, or Sankhya, Yoga, it will have ontology and epistemology. It will have that what are the various categories according to that particular philosophical system. For example, according to Sankhya, there is Purusha, Prakriti, there is then Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. There is 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriya, 5 whatever, Manas and all that, right? So there are 25 tattvas that are described as part of Sankhya. So it means that that is the body of knowledge. That is how reality is looked at. Then what are the sources of knowing that? So they, according to Sankhya, it is Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama. There are 3 sources of knowledge. Okay, we'll go into that a little bit detail, right? So any book you look at, the theory of knowledge, it will talk about the various sources of knowledge and the content of knowledge itself, right? So why is theory of knowledge required? Because especially this is, when there are high school students who are exposed to philosophy and all that, this makes a lot of sense, talking about the Indian aspect of theory of knowledge as well, right? So when you look at, you can search for theory of knowledge of books that are published as part of the IB curriculum, right? International curriculum. There are PDF books available on the internet which talk about the Western perspective of the theory of knowledge, right? So what happens is, by exploring the different sources of knowledge such as perception, reason, language, intuition, it allows us to distinguish between what is opinion and true understanding. So we develop the critical thinking and analytical thinking when we study the theory of knowledge. The important aspect is that we come to know how is this reality classified according to that particular framework. For example, when we grow up, we all study science. I don't know what is the what children learn over there, but I remember when I was learning here in India, we used to learn, in grade 1 or so, living things and non-living things. And in living things, we will learn about animals and plants. And in animals and plants, we would, at a later stage, we would study about the binomial nomenclature, right? Like, for example, Hibiscus rosa sinensis, or something like that, right? For animals, we would learn the scientific naming. So it means that I am learning this categorization and classification of the reality around me according to modern science. According to probably, say, Carolus Linnaeus defined the binomial nomenclature. I learn from that, right? So similarly, when you look at the Indian context, probably we learn as Chetana Shakti, Achetana Shakti. Chetana means which has Chetana, consciousness, which is living. Achetana means it is not living, right? Then in Chetana Dravya, in that which is living, you have Sthavara and Jangama. Sthavara are static, which are trees or plants, and Jangama are the ones which move. And within the Sthavara and Jangama, there are a lot of categories. For example, in plants, there are categories like climbers and creepers, that which, fruit without a flower, that which flower and then become a fruit, or that which die within a lifetime. And in animals, there are categories like that which come from an egg, that which come from a yoni, which is like a mammal. The other one is non-mammals, and all that. Those categories are available in the Shastras as well, right? So it means that I am decoding this particular, decoding the reality around me through a certain framework, through a certain theoretical framework, right? So this helps in developing a more refined and structured way of thinking about reality. And it also sort of raises questions. You can ask questions. You can then make some assumptions or break some assumptions. There are some biases that come out when you theorize about the reality, and it also helps us to develop an open mind, right? So like that, when you go to the philosophical systems, So as a student of IKS, right, what happens, we are outside, very much outside the system. So we broadly study in one slide, Nyaya, this Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, and all. We just study the names and a few things about that particular philosophical system, just as an awareness. But then, if you look at a student of the Shastras, they will be a student of only one of the Shastras. Could be Nyaya Shastra, could be Yoga Shastra, or could be Vedanta Shastra, right? It takes so many years to become an expert in one of the Shastras. That is because there are so many deeper layers of it, and there will be critical commentaries written of the Vedantic texts, which are a lot of them are in the question and answer format. So a question would be raised over there. How do you say that there is life or there is rebirth after death, right? So what is the proof of that? Then there would be critical arguments presented in the text to prove that yes, there is life after death, or you transmigrate from one sharira to another, or whatever it is, right? Or there would be painful details of refuting a particular argument. So like that, and one philosophical system will not agree with the other philosophical system, because the model of creation itself, the model of classification itself will vary, right? So that is why scholars come to a sadas, they sit there and then they debate about it. The very famous debate that happened between Adi Shankara Bhagavatpada and Mandana Mishra, where he accepted defeat and he eventually became the Shishya, Sureshwaracharya of Bhagavatpada. Right? So like that, the debating system has been prevalent mainly because these debates are needed, because we need critical examination of the truth and beliefs, and so that the whatever beliefs I have, if they are incorrect, through the process of debate, they are all that is nullified, so that I hold the truth in my chitta until it becomes irrefutable. So that is why these painful debates become very important. That is what is, in fact, one of the criteria of graduating in certain gurukulas used to be how well they could debate. And now I see a lot of modern researchers, especially in countries outside India, use the Buddhist debating techniques and implement it in their classroom as well. Right. So even we have the Purva Paksha techniques. We also have techniques that, for example, Jalpa, Vada, Vidanta, and all that, which talk about what are the various ways to present your argument, right? All these can become very interesting workshops, of course, for the future. But now we will just, at least we will scratch the surface of the theory of knowledge, right? So what are the sources of knowledge when we look at the contemporary science perspective? So knowledge is gained through direct sensory experience, such as seeing, hearing, or measuring, or smelling, or whatever, right? So, or using scientific instruments like microscopes, telescopes, or sensors, or any other things that extend the human perception, right? And then, or we could know through various experiments that are done to test the hypothesis and establish the cause-effect relationship. Like, for example, correlation does not mean causality. So you will need to establish both in certain circumstances. And the repeatability of the whole thing is what the modern science tests on. If it is not repeatable, it is not scientific. So many of why Indian knowledge systems land into trouble when it comes to acceptability outside the country is because they say that it is not repeatable. Okay, of course there are so many ways to refute that. The premise, the tantra yuktis, or the research methodologies and scientific processes of the Bharatiya knowledge system itself is very different, and hence this, if you force fit this into the other, obviously there will be a lot of issues, right? But that we will reserve it to another discussion. There are various ways of mathematically modeling things, statistically analyzing the data, and then also that also becomes a source of knowledge, right? Or computer simulations, like for example, drug testing. Now, a lot of these drug testing happens on the computers. Instead of testing the various, or even protein folding for that matter, a lot of it has become, there are a lot of virtual manipulators and everything to, or simulations to run some of these protein folding experiments. So that one really doesn't have to go to the chemistry lab and try out all those combinations, right? Or even through academic papers that are published or presented in conferences, peer-reviewed journals, high-quality journals, then that is taken to be a valid source of knowledge because somebody's pratyaksha is presented in the paper, right? Or intuition. Some theories like Eureka and all that, right? Or there will be some aha moments. Or you first, there is a thought experiment, and then you go and try it out in the lab, or you run a simulation, or you collect data, whatever it is, and then you make those discoveries, and you write your inferences and bring a lot of conclusion, or you draw conclusions from that, right? So these are some of the popularly known, like how do we do experiments. Like if you have been a researcher, or if you are a researcher, this is how you would, these are various things that you would probably do. It could be like primary data collection or secondary data collection, qualitative data, quantitative data. You analyze the data, you do empirical studies, you conduct experiments. So there are so many ways by which there are sources of knowledge. When we come to the Indian context, these two terminologies become important, pramana and prameya. Okay. So pramana refers to the various sources of valid knowledge, determining how we acquire true and reliable understanding, such as perception, inference, or agama, whatever it is, right? So what are the valid sources of knowledge according to our shastras? That is called pramana. Okay? And prameya is what is known, that which is known, the object of the knowledge or the subject matter which is being known is called prameya. Okay, the knowledge and from where you are knowing it. What are you knowing and from where you are knowing it? This is prameya and prama. Okay, so the pramana is basically the valid source of knowledge, but there can also be an incorrect perception of reality. Okay, when you have a correct perception of reality, it is pramana. When you have incorrect perception of reality, we call that viparyaya. Okay, that is you don't perceive something to be the actually what it is. You don't perceive it. You perceive it to be something else. That is called viparyaya. Okay, so what can you give me some examples of viparyaya? You perceive something incorrectly. That is called viparyaya. Any example that you can think of? Sorry, I'm not able to see the chat. I have to think if somebody can read it. If somebody has...
Rohit ji, yeah, you had your hand raised up.
Yeah, I'll just go with some experimentation. For example, I'm detecting what kind of organism is based on looking it through the microscope, and it turns out I determined it is one-legged bacteria, but it turned out to be a different type of that. So this is just something based on my inference, based on my static rules, which are incorrect in that way, and that's why my scientific understanding is viparit.
Correct. That means you have incorrectly perceived something. Right. Any other example?
Egg or chicken? Egg or chicken, which one is first?
Okay. But that is like a doubt or a dilemma. But incorrect, you perceive something to be something else. What? some of these could be like very simple, mundane, childish examples, but just when you engage your audience, you would probably need to ask some of these questions to sort of make sure that they are understanding the topic.
So Rudrasen ji had something in the chat. He says snake and rope.
Yes, very classic example. Perceiving a snake, a rope to be a snake. Yeah. So at least if you perceive a rope to be a snake, you are saved. But if you perceive a snake to be a rope, then you are in trouble. Yeah. So what are the reasons why this incorrect perception can happen? What are some of the reasons?
The first one is, as the rope and snake example, the senses may betray you.
Yes, very true. The senses could be defective. Yeah.
Rohit ji?
And there's wrong knowledge, incorrect,
Wrong. Yes.
incorrect knowledge.
Yes.
Previous experiences, connecting with previous experiences.
Based on previous experience, it could be said that way.
Or brand new experience, like first time you're seeing something and
First time, yeah. You don't have prior knowledge, a priori information on that.
Anuji?
Incorrect analysis.
Incorrect analysis. Very good.
DC?
A preconceived notion.
Preconceived notions. Yes. So here in Sankhya, I forgot the exact sutra, but I will just highlight some of the things. In the Sankhya Karika, it is a text on the Sankhya philosophical system by Ishvara Krishna. So here he lists various reasons for our incorrect perception. So he says, Ati Durat, something could be so far away that you are not able to perceive it. Or Samipyat, or it is so close, maybe it's the vision, it blocks so close that you are not able to perceive it correctly. The other aspect is that you don't have knowledge of it. You have never seen that, so you probably perceive it incorrectly. He also says that the mano avastha, the mind, the state of mind is such that you are not perceiving it correctly because you are thinking of something else and you just fail to notice that. The other aspect, he says that it could be in the midst of similar objects because of which you don't see that. Right? So like that, he gives various reasons or the faulty senses, indriya ghata, he says, where the senses are faulty. My eyesight is not good. I'm not able to see whether it is a lamppost or whether it is a tree or whatever, or is it a person who is standing there. Right? So even the indriyas are not working properly. So given that all these conditions don't occur, then there are some valid sources of knowledge. And when you take those valid sources of knowledge, that is called pramana, where correct cognition happens. Right? And prameya is that which you are perceiving, or that which is to be known as part of that particular philosophical system or as that particular knowledge system. It is basically that ontological structure. Okay.
so Mahodaya, can we say these two lead to not knowledge but cognition? In the sense like
Yes.
fire is hot, you can say, or sugar is sweet. You can
Yeah.
describe the chemical properties as much as you want. But unless you actually experience the heat, only then you actually understand what it means. Like all this
Yes.
theory suddenly makes sense.
Correct. And the thing is that this is basically the process of cognition, the cognized, and there is a cognizer over here. Okay. So I am the cognizer. There is the process of valid cognition that is happening, which is the pramana. And there is the thing that is being cognized, the object that is being known, right? That is the subject that is being known. Okay. So then what happens in the, okay, I'm going a little bit deeper into the philosophical aspects. In the deep state of samadhi, there is no differentiation of all these three aspects. So when Maharishi Patanjali talks about the stage of samadhi, he says that these three differences actually go away. Okay? So when we talk about pramana, what are the valid sources of knowledge? This we looked at a little bit in the previous session, but I'm just repeating. Anybody has anything to say?
Yes. So what you just mentioned. So the who, what, and the how, it does not exist in samadhi.
Yeah, the thing is that when in a deep state of samadhi, which is like a nirvikalpa samadhi, vikalpa means there are these mental manifestations that are there. So nirvikalpa means those mental manifestations are not there. So in a very deep sense of samadhi, I don't even know that I am going through that samadhi experience. So that cognizer also is not there.
Okay. Dhanyawad.
Yeah. For example, if we eat good food, I say I had a wonderful lunch. So I know that I have gone through that experience. But in the deep state of samadhi, that I is not there. So I went through that samadhi. Okay, at a later point you say probably, but at that moment you are not present to cognize the whole thing. You are already the cognizer, cognition, and cognized have all merged.
Like dreaming something. So in the dreams, like, you will experience something, but you are not actually there.
No. In the dream, something is there. You are still there. You are perceiving that, right? Some part of you is still cognizing. The mental faculties are still working over there. In the state of samadhi, it is not a mental faculty that is there.
Okay.
When we talk about pramana, there are these pramanas as part of the various philosophical systems. I know this content can make us a little bit impatient as to, okay, when will we actually get into the IKS, the Ganita, Ayurveda, astronomy and all that. But then these are the philosophical foundations of all these knowledge systems, and hence, important to know. I know there can be a lot of cognitive load trying to assimilate, trying to remember the terminologies and all that. But the idea here is to just hear it once so that, at least these seed samskaras are present, and then they will start, flowering or whatever, sprouting as and when we get exposed to more and more of these knowledge systems. So when we talk about pramana, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Agama, Arthapatti, and Anupalabdhi. The disadvantage of writing it in English here is that you can pronounce it in many ways. But I wanted to use some of with the diacritic marks, but then that will make it even more complicated. So for now, I just let it be. So Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Agama, Arthapatti, and Anupalabdhi. Okay, these are some different philosophical systems have different set of these sources of knowledge. Okay. So Pratyaksha Pramana. What is Pratyaksha Pramana? So some word that all of us use on a regular basis. In Tamil we say Pratyakshama Pate. Firsthand, I witnessed this with my own eyes, we say. And in Hindi also, I'm sure you use this term. So Pratyaksha Pramana is direct perception, is one of the primary means of acquiring valid knowledge. It refers to knowledge gained through direct sensory experience through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Okay. So here, I've just taken an example. How does perception happen? So you are seeing a particular object. Okay? You're seeing the dog. And initially, the sense organ that is used here is the eye. Okay. And then what happens? There are receptor cells in the eyes, rods and cones in the retina. And these receptor sensors get activated. And of course, you perceive depth, you perceive color, and so many things there. And because of this, through the optic nerve, right, through the nerve conduit, optic nerve, it goes to the brain. And in the brain, there is this region called the occipital lobe, in which the visual cortex, which is one of the largest sections of the brain, the primary visual cortex is present. Okay, and the information is processed over there. And there in the other regions also, there are memories which you have, that it is your dog, it is this particular breed of dog, and whatever it is. Or you, and then a series of things also trigger. When you see the dog, you feel, oh, he or she must be hungry. I need to feed the dog. So the whole mechanism kicks in, and then it also gets transmitted to the mechanical, motor nerves, and then you act on it. You go and feed the dog, or you cuddle the dog, or whatever it is, right? So you have this entire mechanism which happens in the perception. So similarly, the auditory senses. Okay, so there are mechanical sensors in the ear which vibrate when the sound waves pass. Again, when you touch, there are mechanical sensors. When you taste, there are chemical sensors. When you smell, there are chemical sensors, which again transmit the signal to the brain, right? So through this, the brain receives the signals, and there is some amount of decoding that happens. Image recognition, pattern recognition, word recognition, all these sound recognition, all these happen as part of this entire process called perception, right? So this is called pratyaksha pramana, where you are directly perceiving that particular object. In our Shastras, pratyaksha pramana is given a lot of importance. Though agama is given importance, agama means the words of the rishis. Though our texts are very important, the Vedas we see as the ultimate source of knowledge, but still it is said that those texts are nothing but the pratyaksha of the rishis, and hence they are valid sources of knowledge. So ultimately, everything folds into the direct perception. Somebody's direct perception is what we consume as textual knowledge, or heard knowledge, or revealed knowledge, or whatever it is, right? So that is why pratyaksha pramana is given a lot of importance in our Shastras. What is anumana? There are some technical terms here. Let's not worry about the Sanskritam terms present in the picture. But anumana is the process of inference. Okay, why this, knowing this in the IKS context is very important, because any IKS, when you do Ayurveda research, or when you do Ganita research, or whatever it is, these scientific processes become important. As a person who is just scratching the surface of it, it may not matter so much. But the moment you start delving deeper into it, all these become very important, because these are the foundational frameworks of Indian knowledge system. And you cannot, suppose in Anumana, what is Anumana? You cannot perceive something directly through your senses, okay? But you infer based on a particular pointer and some pre-existing relationships and some similarities and differences. I'll tell you how, okay? So here you see a hill, and then you see, it's a very classic example. You see smoke on top of the hill. Now, you are not able to directly perceive the fire, but you conclude that there is fire on the mountain. Okay. But how do you conclude? You see what you're able to directly see. Just give me a minute. Yeah. There was some background noise for me. So what you're directly perceiving is basically the smoke, right? So that is a particular pointer. Smoke is what you're perceiving. But you know that wherever there is smoke, there should be fire, right? So however, the inverse relationship need not be true. Wherever there is fire, there need not be smoke. For example, in your gas stove, we don't get smoke out of that. But wherever there is fire, there should have been smoke. Wherever there is smoke, there should have been fire. Some people will say there is a cloud, there is some hazy thing in front of us, but there is no fire. But that is dust. When you see smoke, that is typically there is fire there. But now you know that inherent relationship between the permanent relationship between smoke and fire. So that is why you declare that there is smoke, there is fire on the mountain, right? So you draw an inference, though you are not able to directly perceive something. For example, you draw an inference that Pitta dosha has been imbalanced. How you see the tongue, there is yellow deposit. Directly, you can't see a dosha, okay? But you see a lot of these signs which are pointers, and then you draw an inference and you make a conclusion out of this, okay? So there is something called Panchavayava Vakya. There is a 5-component sentence or 5 sentences where you write a scientific conclusion with these 5 sentences. So when a student of IKS has to write something scientifically, they are trained to look at the Panchavayava Vakya. Okay, they have to write what is the assumption over there, what is the reason over there, what is the conclusion, all that they have to write. That is what is listed over here. I'm not going to go into the details of that. That will be too much for this session. Okay. Upamana. Upamana is analogy or example. So gained through comparison. It helps in understanding an unknown entity by relating it to a known one based on similarity. Okay. So this particular fruit on this one is something that probably all of you have on a regular basis. This is the kiwi fruit. Okay. But in India, we don't normally get a kiwi fruit. Okay. So here we get what is called sapota. But then if you have to explain to a child living in India about kiwi fruit, then you will say, have you seen a sapota? The outer skin looks like a sapota, but it is not a sapota. It is a different fruit. Something like that you will say, right? So when you have to explain some unknown thing to a person, you would use the known concepts and say like this, right? You will use the word like as a comparison, right? So this particular thing is called upamana or analogy or example. So that's why in Hindi, they say upma means example, right? So upamana is learning through comparison. I compare these two. The outer skin seems similar. Of course, in taste and everything is very different, right? So some similarity. So that when I show the kiwi fruit to the child the next time, the child will say, oh, I know this is a kiwi fruit. It looks like a sapota, but it's not a sapota. Okay. So that is called upama. The next one is called Shabda Pramana or Agama. Shabda Pramana refers to knowledge gained through reliable verbal testimony, particularly from trustworthy sources like the scriptures, like the Vedas, or enlightened individuals like the Rishis. When we read the Nyaya Vaisheshika text, who is a reliable person and what is a reliable sentence, even that is very detailed, defined in a very detailed manner. Okay, so the person, when we say reliable person, they should be without faults. So basically, for example, when nowadays you get a lot of these news articles saying how the data was fudged, the experiment was actually conducted in an incorrect manner, and then it was falsified data and all that, right? So it means that it is not a trustworthy source anymore. So what do you call a reliable source? It would have been tested multiple times. The peers would have accepted that and all that. So you can imagine if it is defined to that level of detail in our Shastras, it means that there should have been a very rigorous scientific process. So to call something a pseudoscience or something that does not fit into the modern scientific, it cannot be accepted straight away. There needs to be a rebuttal or a refutation of such statements, because what is a reliable sentence? How to construct a reliable sentence? Who is a reliable person? Whose vakya can be accepted? All this is basically presented in our Shastras. And especially why is Agama used is because when there are things which are beyond our direct perception, such as dharma, moksha, metaphysical truths, then we need the Agama Shastras. Okay. So that is somebody who, suppose Bhagavan Shri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, when you die, you think of me, I myself will be there to receive you, right? So we take that with a lot of shraddha. There is no way to verify that. In Tamil, we joke, how do you know about death? You have to die to know that, some kind of a joke is cracked like that. So when we say Bhagavan Shri Krishna will come and receive, there is no direct perception possible, or even if I perceive, I can't come back and report, say. Okay. But then we take the Shastras with a lot of Shraddha, and then we take up our sadhana accordingly. Right? So the Agama basically helps us to, brings an action-oriented framework, because we believe in it, we trust in it, we develop Shraddha in it, and then progress from there. Not questioning everything in the name of, inquiry or reasoning or analytical thinking. Right? Arthapatti, or it is called postulation, where there is insufficient data, you basically you assume something based on another fact. Okay, so Arthapatti refers to knowledge gained through a logical postulation or necessary implication when direct perception or inference is not possible, or it's insufficient. So a very Shastric example that is given always is, if a person, Devadatta, is known to be alive and healthy, but is never seen eating during the day, one can logically postulate that he must be eating at night. In many of the Shastric books, it would be given like this. Okay, you can take it another example. If you see a person, if you see a student, you have never seen him study, but he's always scoring good marks. Maybe he's studying. You have never seen him study during the day. He's probably studying during the night. Something like that. Okay. So since his good health cannot be explained through other means, you just assume that, okay, he's eating in the night. And that is what completes your understanding of his eating habits. Okay. That is called Arthapatti, where you make some assumptions in order to draw the conclusion, because you are not able to perceive something. Anupalabdhi. Anupalabdhi means, upalabdha means to gain or may something is available, right? Anupalabdhi means knowing through the unavailability of something. Okay? If a book is usually there in a particular place and now it is missing, now by not seeing the book, you assume that, okay, somebody has taken it, right? You draw a conclusion based on its absence. If there is no sound in a silent room, the absence of sound is known through Anupalabdhi. Okay, it's a silent room, or somebody is playing an instrument. Through that, you make some inferences based on the absence of something. Okay? So these are the various sources of knowledge according to our Shastras. Here, if you have any question, because next we are going to go a little bit into pedagogy. Yes, Jay?
So Upalabdhi is basically gaining knowledge, literal meaning?
Upalabdhi, sorry. Upalabdhi means, through it's available. Labdha means to take, to possess something, or it is available to be taken, right? But Anupalabdhi means it is through it's not available to be perceived.
Okay, gotcha. So it's basically acquiring is basically, I guess not acquiring. It's available for acquisition. That's Upalabdhi.
It's available for perception.
For perception, not acquisition.
Okay.
Okay.
So, for example, this bottle, I'm showing it to you. Now you are perceiving it. Now I've taken it away. It's absent. So now you conclude that, okay, she must have moved the bottle, because I'm not seeing the bottle.
Okay.
It's a bit tricky, because some of these have been added as part of various, Navyanaya and many things later on. And there is something called abhava, the perceiving the absence of something. Okay.
So Mahodaya, I have a question. So when you are learning a concept for the first time, Like you have never seen which pramana would cover that, like something that you are finding out for the first ever time. And
First
let's
ever
say,
time, what is the methodology that you are using? Suppose you are reading it in a book, then it is called agama. Okay. When you are seeing it, suppose you are tasting, like for example, I have never tasted, say, kiwi fruit here much. The first time I tasted it, but direct perception is happening. I'm tasting the fruit there. But then I will have to have another source of knowledge to declare that this is, kiwi fruit. So a combination of these knowledge systems is what? Sorry, combination of these sources will be needed.
so in order for something to be declared, this is what it is. All these 6
All these
pramanas
will be needed, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That could also be anumana. I could draw some inference. Oh, this is some new fruit, sour, could be this particular family of fruit or something. I will, infer from that.
So
Or I will increase my pitta, something like that. I will. Yeah.
So
Yes.
pramana. So in a nutshell, it's the paths to cognition. The pathway,
sorry.
all six parts of this is actually are the pathways to cognition.
Yeah, pathways to cognition. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Error-free cognition.
Oh, that's subjective, right? It's just the pathways, right?
Yeah, pathway, but it is called valid source of knowledge, because when you make an incorrect thing, it is called viparyeya. But here, of course, let us assume that these are called valid sources of knowledge. Or
Okay.
you can understand it as pathways to cognition.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Mahodaya, sorry, I didn't frame my question properly, I think. My question was like, are they independent, or like, say, for example, someone has a spiritual experience that is their own experience, and they know it is some samadhi, something like that has happened to them. Now they will go and look at, say, read Yoga Sutras or some yoga texts, and they would get the agama, or not agama, anumana. So 2 items checked, right? So like that, is it more like then only so for something to become a shastram, these things need to be there? Otherwise, just keep it to yourself. What works for you may not work for others, so be careful.
Yes.
It is for those kind of things. These pramana is more rigorous. It will become repeatable, right?
Correct.
Otherwise, it is still beta testing mode, or
Yes.
mileage may vary stage.
And there will be a lot of sabhas where it can be refuted also. So they will have to go, like, just like we have peer review process, we go to a conference, like people can, say, like, they can sort of refute the work, or you put a journal paper, people can refute that theory, right? Even such things happen in the debating process. So it has to withstand all those processes. Only then it can be, considered. For example, like there are a lot of things that are mentioned in certain text as well. When we say tridosha, right? So why it is not, panchadoshas are not taken? Why 4 doshas are not taken? So there is that necessary and sufficient conditions, all that have to be tested. Data has to be collected. The rishis, the peer rishis should accept that. Everybody should have a similar experience, and only then the rishi can declare that there are 3 doshas and not 4 or 5 or whatever, 10. So like that, there will be processes, which of course we don't know because they're all so old. So we don't know what is the background that has happened. And with respect to the samadhi experience, a little bit of arthapatti can also be applied, because we say that, okay, in this lifetime, I didn't do any work to get that samadhi. So probably I make an assumption that I did some work in my previous lifetime, that I am, going through this experience. Yeah. Or that could also come through agama, saying in the text it would be written, because of your past karma, you go through this in this lifetime. Could be multiple things.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Darshanji?
Smriti ji, you mentioned that these particular pramanas being used in multiple shastras, right? So one of those is Ayurveda, but uh, are these being used for any other places also in current
So
days?
if you look at this, for example, the Yoga Shastra uses Pratyaksha, Anumana and Agama. When you read the Yoga Sutra, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Pramanani. Yoga and Sankhya use Pratyaksha, Anumana and Agama. When you look at Nyaya Shastra and Vaisheshika, it uses Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana and Agama. When you look at the other Shastra, other philosophical systems, they use all the 6 Pramanas.
So
So
even today, students do use all these.
yes, yes.
Okay.
I mean, how much of it they actually use, I'm not sure, because now all this has gone to the colleges. So in the college, I think most likely they are just applying modern science frameworks to do their own research, even in the IKS. So yeah, but in the Shastrik Sabhas, when you attend some, say, Shastra Sabhas or Sadas, many of these things are looked at.
Okay. Dhanyawada, Mahodaya.
Yes.
Surekha
Arthapat,
ji?
For
yes.
assisting a student also we do pramana, right?
Pramana. Yeah, that is a different kind that we say, to accredit a student, we say we give Pramana Patra and all that, right? So
For
that is also,
assisting a student, how much he knows.
that is a different thing. That is also in terms of, the validity of his knowledge. That way it is
Yes.
Pramana. And another thing is that when I say a sentence, say for example, I say there is life after death, then you will ask me, so what is the pramana for that? And I will say, see, this particular verse in Bhagavad Gita talks about this, right? So the pramana is also used in terms of show me the source. Where is the citation for this?
Okay.
The odd places in India can visit, can witness sadhas, uh, many things happen even in Chennai. The Vedanta Sadhas keeps happening as part of the various madams. It happens. I will see if there is anything that is available online, the video recordings I can pass on. This thing. In fact, there was one recent one in Shastra University. There was a Sadhas that happened on Vedanta. This thing,
Thank you, Mahodaya.
Okay, fine. Let's move from here. Yes, somebody has something to say.
I just wanted to mention that it's so nice to know I took a basic psychology class way back in college, but now I'm hearing everything in some Sutam words. It's mind-blowing to me that I can finally connect something in my life.
Very true, very true. That's why I said this foundational exposure is very crucial, because one thing, it kindles a lot of curiosity. The second thing is we also feel happy that, okay, so much already exists in our the domain, which can be utilized and for the future. Yeah, very true.
It's a way to validate if it's Vidya or Avidya, because that's the thing that, and the magnitude of understanding is always questionable. But
Correct.
hey, it's a good opportunity. Thank you.
Yes.
Arunji?
Other aspects, Smriti, which may be beneficial to the class. So, for instance, Nyayakas, they may not necessarily look at Shabda as being a valid form of pramana. So, from a perspective of, like general knowledge, right? Like in terms of how different systems or different schools had a different perception of what pramanas are acceptable. If you can just comment on that for a minute or so, I think that will be very beneficial for everyone over here.
Yeah. So, for example, what happens is that, in certain knowledge systems, one is subsumed within the other. For example, in something, Upamana may not be looked at as a very separate, valid source, separate pramana. It will just be put under the inference process itself. What is there to, compare? You can just draw an inference based on some pointer. Or some things will place the Shabda Pramana at the highest. For example, Mimamsa will say that Vedas are the revelatory knowledge and it is the ultimate source of knowledge. It is completely flawless. So Shabda, which is again, of course, which is the Pratyaksha of certain rishis, it is given the highest. So like that, the weightage that is given to the various pramanas vary from knowledge system, one knowledge system to another. And there are other aspects as well. I don't have full clarity on this, but I can tell you something in terms of there are concepts like Satkaryavada and Asatkaryavada and all that, where the effect lies within the cause, or the effect is even without, does not just depend on the cause, and many such things. So how did reality manifest itself? There are various theories about that as well. Did it come because of an existing cause, or was it just a big bang that just came randomly? Right. So each philosophical system also differs in the way they look at how the emergence of reality happened. For example, there is this stick, Arani stick, right? When in the yajnas, what they do is that they have this wooden stick, and then they have this thread around it, and they churn the stick, and the fire is generated. So there is a stick, there is a wooden stick, wooden base, and there is a rope or a thread, and they keep churning the stick on the wooden base, and it sparks, and then the fire is created, and with that fire only the yajna is lighted. So that is how the model is, sort of, Urali or that Arani stick. So that is how they say about reality in one of the philosophical systems. Just as the fire actually was there within the stick, it just manifested because of the process of churning. So the reality was also there within the seed. Through the process of churning, it just emerged. It was already embedded in that particular seed. So like that, there are various models of creation, but those will be like, too much to grasp at this point in time. And of course, it requires a very deep philosophical rigor process of understanding it to the T, to decode some of this. So this is what a typical student of Shastra thinks about, wonders about, reads about, and draw their own inferences, and also would want to go through that anubhava, because many people, deep scholars, theoretical scholars of Vedanta, in fact, I met Vedantin, and that person was sharing with me in all humility. He is a great person, but in all humility, he was sharing how, in spite of knowing that Vedanta, Jivatma, Paramatma are one and the same, but then when the COVID hit, I was so afraid for my life, right? That what will happen to me. At that time, it was difficult for me to just think, okay, anyway, I'm going to leave this body and take another body and all that, right? So then what happens is that every student of Vedanta, Yoga Shastra, or whatever, also longs for that Vedantic, that Anubhava, that it should be there in the chitta, that reality. That's why, one of the Shishyas of Adi Shankaracharya was called Hasta Amalakacharya. The Hasta Amlaka, the reality or truth was as clear as an amla placed on the palm. So that was his kind of realization, right? So a student of Vedanta, in spite of going through all these details and everything, longs for that anubhava, where for oneself the experience that the Jivatma and Paramatma are not different. So there's so much, but that will be philosophy course and probably not a science course, but nevertheless. When we talk about pedagogy, you have Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. This is a very foundational frame. So the Shravana, there is a process. It's a process like how does a student learn in a Gurukula, learn under the Guru. The first step is Shravana. In our Gurukulam also, we follow this. Most of the texts that we learn are through Shravana. When the child comes to the Gurukula, they don't know to read Sanskritam. It takes some time to read Sanskritam. But then through the listening process itself, so much gets awakened in the child. For example, my elder son learns Carnatic music. Till now, he has never looked at a book and sung. And his teacher also doesn't teach using a book. So he is also not allowed to go through the book. So whatever he listens to as part of the class, he has to memorize it in the class itself. And next day he has to practice that day. And next day he has to perform that whatever he has learned. Right? So this listening skill developed tremendously through just this process. Right? The first step in gaining self-knowledge, Shravana, involves listening to and studying the teaching of the scriptures from an acharya. Manana is engaging in that thought process, chewing the cud, right? Keep on chewing the concept over and over again. And this ensures that there is a very deep understanding that you develop. And there is also an assimilation and application that happens where this becomes part of you, right? No more it sticks out as some theoretical knowledge, but you have just assimilated that knowledge within you. That is called Nididhyasana. This is a very powerful framework that is there. And what happens in a traditional learning process? So you have Pataha. First is the teaching. The Guru imparts knowledge through the direct teaching, through recitation, explanation of the various concepts. So one concept the Guru will take that particular day and explain it. Then the Chintanam happens, the reflection and discussion there is with the co-students, within oneself. There is a deep thinking and questioning and debating as to what the Acharya taught, what the Guru taught that particular day. And then what happens? The Anuvada happens, where the next day the student should accurately reproduce whatever the student has done the previous day. Right? So it so happened that if you read the life story of Swami Chimyananda, he went and learned under Tapovan Maharaj. Tapovan Maharaj taught the Upanishads. He said, I'm not going to give you a book to learn the Upanishads. So I will basically, chant and then explain it to once. You have to assimilate it and then you have to repeat it to me. Only then I will progress. So just once he would explain the meaning of that particular verse. So Swami Chimyananda initially sort of found it difficult given his background that he was a journalist and very modern education and all that. But over a period of time, the listening skill got so honed that just once was enough for him to repeat. And look at the outcome. One of the greatest teachers that we have seen in the recent times is Swami Chimyananda. Right? The other aspects of pedagogy include adhyayana, basically, which is studying, repeatedly studying it. Swadhyaya, which is self-study, debating and reasoning. Even now in Gurukulas, the process of debating is there. And Upadesha, which is a direct instruction from the Guru. And Anubhava, suppose Yoga Shastra. You study about the sadhana pada, what all you have to do. Then you go back and do some asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, so that you gain the experience for yourself. It's a first-hand experience that you gain. Okay, so all these are also part of the pedagogy, Gurukula pedagogy or Indian pedagogy or IKS pedagogy. So when we look at this particular, aspect of pedagogy, the beauty of the way the Indian knowledge system is constructed is that it is written in the form of verses, which can be memorized and repeated and then given in an oral form from the Guru to the student, from the senior student to the junior student, and even now the Pathashalas, that is how they function. Right? So that is what, Professor James Hartzell, a neuroscientist, studied. He studied the impact of rigorous Sanskrit memorization on the brain structure. His research found that professional, the students, the Pathashala Pandits, right, exhibited, increased gray matter density and enhanced cognitive functions like memory, verbal intelligence, neural connectivity, language, cognition, and all that. And the plasticity of the brain was also very high because of the repeated process of chanting. So Hartzell's findings suggest that Sanskrit chanting strengthens brain plasticity, benefiting memory, focus, and learning abilities. This reinforces the idea that ancient oral traditions may have contributed that oral tradition, versification, chandas, and the codification of knowledge in the form of sutras would have actually led to the cognitive excellence among the various scholars. Even now, when you see scholars, there is so much linked to the knowledge. You give them a word, they will talk about it from the Upanishads, from the Bhagavad Gita, from Kalidasa's Kavya. They will put it together. That's how they present a coherent picture by drawing from various Shastras. Right? So how this memorization pedagogy helps? In the modern context, many of us have come to look down upon what we call as rote learning, because we focus on application-oriented, inquiry-based learning and all that. Of course, if you take a physics textbook and by heart it, that's a problem. But the knowledge itself, the Sanskrit knowledge itself, is constructed, which enables this memorization process, right? So here there strengthens the working memory, thereby reducing cognitive load. There is recall, there is concentration. Of course, some of this you'll also see in the later sessions whenever we have it on neuroscience and all that. And the chandas, the metrical patterns, help you to identify and sequence the words, right? So there is this combinatorics, extensive combinatorics that is there because of chandas. It also improves the verbal intelligence, the diction, the phonetic precision, articulation. Because when you take Sanskritam, the number of syllables, you have a wide-ranging set of syllables, right? People in some of the countries cannot pronounce some of those words. So that is the advantage of Sanskrit, that the wide range of sounds that are produced from the throat, from the upper palate, from the lip, from the soft palate, all these are looked at, right? And it's also a rigorous mental discipline. You have a lot of focus and concentration. You cannot just doze off. You have to pay attention when you repeat the chants and all that. So that pedagogy really helps the Vidyarthi. And the beauty of the Indian knowledge system is that storytelling was also a very powerful pedagogical aspect, Ramayana, Mahabharata, because they kindle this imagination, emotions, and then there is a better chance of retaining the concept because it is blended with emotions, right? So, for example, many texts are dialogue-based to stimulate this inquiry and reasoning, especially the Upanishads. Or they are presented in the form of natakas, which help you to retain concepts because there is music, drama, gestures, and postures and all that. And this tends to stick on to the memory for a very long time. Also, they mold the student's character. It is the easiest way is through vicarious learning. You as a person cannot go through all these experiences. The best way is to probably read a story, illustrate a story, and then narrate a story and illustrate a principle in that story. So at a very young age, say 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or whatever, the best way to learn is through the stories. And enacting the stories, drawing pictures, doing some artwork based on the stories, all this actually enhance enrich the pedagogy. Just to continue the storytelling pedagogy, you look at the Panchatantra, right? So Panchatantra is a fantastic work by Vishnu Sharma. So there is a king who is there who has his sons who are not so very intelligent. So he is really worried, like how will they take over the governance of the country? Then he hears about Vishnu Sharma, who's a learned person. So he says that you please accept my children and educate them. So the book itself, it states that it has been written for educating the unintelligent princes on governance. So there are 5 books, Panchatantra, okay, 5 topics or 5 concepts or whatever it is, right? And so the book itself explicitly states that there is a pedagogy, storytelling pedagogy associated with this particular thing. So it becomes a very powerful text. So this you have Mitra Bheda, Mitra Samprapti. There are 5 books over here which talk about how friendships can be lost, how friendships can be made, and how to create discord amongst enemies, and how if one is not prudent, one can lose hard-earned gains, and also the consequence of taking rash actions. All these are taught. So he says within 6 months you will see that these children will become intelligent, and he promises that, and the Raja is very happy. And then he actually delivers within 6 months of this Panchatantra. Uh, the uh, the prince become very intelligent, right? So there, the storytelling is explicit as a pedagogy. The Panchatantra, Hitopadesha is also there. And the Upanishads also have a lot of like the Guru Sishya Sambandha, and also a lot of stories are blended into the Upanishads. There are websites that bring out the stories of the Upanishads. You can go through some of them. So, for example, again, a lot of pedagogical, methods are also presented in the Upanishads. Of course, nobody would accept such pedagogy in the modern context, but nevertheless, it also illustrates certain principles. So here, there is in Chandogya Upanishad, there is a student who comes, Satyakama Jabala. He approaches the Guru and says, I want to learn. And then the Guru asks, who are you? He says, I don't know. I'm not very sure about my lineage, but my mother told me I'm Satyakama Jabala and I need to learn from you. So the Guru appreciates his honesty, but he says, you take these 400 cows, go into the forest and return only when they become 1,000. So the student is very sincere. He goes, but then in the process, he meets so many beings like Crane and all that, who actually illustrate the truth to him. So he becomes a very enlightened student. He comes, but he feels, but without learning under the Guru, I cannot achieve that level of perfection. He's humble enough. He comes back to the Guru and says, I've learned through all these various creatures, but I would definitely want to know the truth from you. And then the instruction is given. And then there is also Prashna Upanishad. It is not ask, it is ask. So student asks Pipalada Rishi about the truth. Then he says, I can't straight away give you the instructions. You come and live with me, and you keep asking me questions. So they live in the Gurukula, they take care of his needs, they clean the Gurukula and all. Of course, all those details are not present, but we can just make an inference. Then there are a lot of questions emerge from the students about what happens to the pranas, what happens to the deha, and many such questions arise. Those questions are captured and the Guru answers, and he says, to the best of my ability I will answer, and then he gives answers to those questions. Then there is Kena Upanishad, which says, Kena means by whom? By whom does this whole thing work? So like that, there are a lot of questions. So the Upanishad also bring in a lot of pedagogical tools, right? So this is briefly about the Indian pedagogical aspect. Just to go over it, we looked at Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, the traditional learning process, the Adhyayana process, Sanskrit and memorization as a pedagogy, storytelling as a pedagogy, and how certain texts build in that, build various pedagogical tools. Yes.
Mahodaya, the last examples that you were giving, right, about the cows, Jabala Rishi story. So I heard a similar incident in some Ayurvedic Rishi also, like so one of the students wanted to learn, and his guru told him that first go ahead and find me a herb or like a plant that has no medicinal properties. When you find that, I will, something like that.
Yes.
He goes and he says, I could not find, I tested over 100,000 plants, something, and I could not find even a single one that is useless.
Yes.
So something, but by doing that, he had compiled a lot of herbs. He had created like, I don't know what you call it, the equivalent of a medical thesaurus or something.
Correct. Yes, I don't know the name, but definitely this story is there. Yes. Like that, there are numerous stories which illustrate very deep tools used by the acharyas. Which, as I told you, might be shocking in today's context, but that also help the student to develop a lot of patience and complete surrender to the Guru before they started the process of learning.
Mahodaya, are there any example role play based activities conducted based on the Panchatantra? Like how to, like, given a scenario and ask the children to do Mitra Bheda? What do you,
We
any?
haven't tried it out, but we can find out if there is any. We haven't tried that out, but that's a good, yeah, it's a good.
Like there was a Shibiram conducted by another organization. And Samskrita, one of Samskrita Bharati teachers had
Okay.
come and given us a session on Panchatantra, but it was just for one day. But it was so that got us thinking, these are like perfect candidates for getting a group of children, giving a scenario. Now you tell us, was he acting as a friend or was he pretending to be a friend?
Correct, correct.
Especially for kids who are studying across cultures, it's
Yes. Very true. This can be, in fact, as part of the sessions itself, something of this sort can be developed. The end goal of learning all this is to be ultimately taking it to some target group of learners. Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking about this to Arunji, but we didn't have but looking at the Panchatantra slide, it's
Correct.
like a easily achievable framework, I think, for this.
Very true, very true.
Dhanyavada, Bhagini. I have no further questions.
I just had a suggestion on a particular activity or assignment, which I will just, I was discussing with Srikant ji, that before the fifth session, that is in this particular module, we have one more session and then comes the fifth session, last session in this particular module. I thought that if you can tell me which is the best way, is it a group assignment or a individual assignment, as to prepare a presentation on the educational philosophy and a little bit of history of India to certain target audience. Okay. So the assignment will be for you to prepare a 10-slide presentation, which is suitable either for a high school, a middle school student, or a high school student, or a general group of IKS enthusiasts or parents. Okay. 3 options. You can prepare it for a middle school student or a high school student or an adult IKS enthusiast. So this is something we felt that which will help you to reflect on what we have looked at, and then also develop the idea to take it to some target segment. You need not exactly use the same material. You can do your own research, present it as pictures, present it as other things also. You can activity or whatever, but a 10-slide presentation as an assignment. So, do you think a group is better or an individual is better? How do we do that? If it is individual, we will have to find a mechanism to, evaluate presentation by presentation. If it is a group, then probably we can allocate some time per group in the last session to present.
Anuji?
I would prefer individual, because when it's a group, again, assigning and then finding the group members, that might be hard, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm. So we were thinking that this group formation can be kind of organic, and people can kind of reach out and find their this thing. I mean, nobody knows everyone else here, right? So it's almost equal probability that you just find a good group mate here. So there, the only advantage of having a group would be you can engage in discussions and come up with more kind of full-formed idea, and it may be kind of easier to present in the class in the last session, and you could get feedback right away. If it is individual, we could do the exact same thing. It may just not get the amount of time and visibility in the classroom. You may have to do it, some of it offline. So just consider these things. I'm seeing a lot of people wanting to work in small groups here on the side.
Should we assign groups and pass on mail IDs or something like that? What would you prefer?
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting. So is it what is the length expected? I'm okay either ways, but what's the length expected? If it's a longer one, as you told, I think group would be better. But if it's just 10 slides, something like that, then even individual, I prefer individual if it's just a short one.
And that's fine, Bhagini. You don't have to be forced into a group if you prefer to do it by yourself. That's completely fine. So the length is 10 slides, right? It's not the length of the slides, right? The material is kind of vast. There is some research involved. Sorry.
So I mean the length of the time also, not just the number of slides. What is the presentation time expected? What's the max time for each presentation?
We are still evolving this thing, based on all of your inputs. We wanted to know if the group is preferred or individual, and then take this forward. As Shrikantji said, I am also in favor of a group because each one can bring something. At the same time, we not have full picture of the whole thing or do the entire this thing, right? So
yeah,
I'm okay with the group also. I'm fine either ways. Dhanyawad.
Yeah. Janki ji and Rohit ji, would like to hear from you as well in brief.
Yeah, I already pinged actually. I was just saying that group is better because that way at least as we are going to study together for a year, it's better. That way we can know each other slowly, and also we can share knowledge. It's always helpful.
Okay.
So even I would prefer the group. Yeah.
Okay. Rohit ji?
I think same what Janki said. What I feel is a group is better, but instead of we defining which group members we need to add, it will create some chaos. You guys being an IKS organizers, just randomly put people in the groups and then we will work it together. It is that way, in my opinion.
Okay, good. Rudra Sen ji?
Yeah, I was suggesting only that if we have topics, we can suggest that way people are going to have curiosity towards those topics. That will make the group a little bit cohesive instead of completely random.
Okay.
And if the group gets too big, then we can split that up again, right? So that way,
and keep in mind that point taken. Keep in mind that as we move to further modules, this exercise is going to continue presentations, and your group might change. Okay, so that way we'll rotate.
Definitely, yeah, of course.
Subramani ji.
Namaste, Ji. My question is not related to this specific today's class. It was more of a logistical question. So I heard there was some Shibiram happening in US by Anadi Foundation on IKS somewhere in April or something. Any updates on that?
Okay.
In the US, nothing. Nothing as of now planned. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also not aware. Okay, very good.
Subramani ji is encouraging you to plan a Shibiram. That's what he's putting a seed actually.
That's right. Yeah.
No, I think I heard it in one of the meets in Austin. Someone from Pennsylvania had come. Her sister is in Anadi.
Yeah.
So she said, So she was talking about it.
I am traveling there, but yes, if whenever there is a time and there is interest, we can definitely do an IKS Shibiram. Yeah, we'll be more than happy to do.
Yeah, thank you, Ji.
Okay, so it looks like we are veering towards the small group type activity here. So Smriti ji, I'll work with you offline to get like a 1 or 2 line statement of goal for this particular activity, and we'll let people loose on the information, and then we'll see how that transpires, and then we can always adjust in the upcoming sessions.
Just one thing, I hope everybody is regularly seeing the Google Classroom, because that is where everything is being mentioned, assignments and everything. So please do keep looking at Google Classroom.
Yeah, I do want to add that we are working quite actively as soon as the session gets over to make the key takeaways document and quiz and summary documents in both English and in Hindi. So please do take a look at it, provide feedback. We don't enforce the quiz submissions right now, but it's really worthwhile because it covers the entire slide deck. So it'll help you go back, review the material, and keep up with the pace of the class. Okay, so yeah, please do be in touch with the Google Classroom page. Yeah, Rohitji?
Just a quick understanding. Is the quiz is supposed to be submitted because the answer key is written right away? So I thought it is more of self-evaluation.
Yeah, it's up to you. We are not mandating it. I just provided a date because we want to get it done before the next class, right? So it's more of a self-evaluation in that sense. Feel free to turn it in. I'm looking at the submissions also.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
Yeah.
So reviews will be provided after submitting?
Say that again, Bagini?
So reviews will be provided when we submit the
Okay. Yeah, if you're just if we notice that something needs to be reviewed and detailed feedback needs to be provided, we will. But part of what we are trying to do here in terms of these group presentations is to validate the understanding. So there will be quizzes in the future where you'll have to submit through a Google form and we'll review it. This one is not like that. This is more of trying to keep pace with the class. Just review the material and stay on track for now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Darshanji?
So Shrikantji, for the presentation, would there be separate topics that will be published and people can pick from it?
Yeah, we'll do that, right? Give me a day or so to work with Smritiji offline. Probably by tomorrow we'll have something, some statements, some goals, duration. We'll do the group assignments. All of that. We'll take care of it this weekend.
Sure. Dhanyavad.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Yeah, please communicate through the Google Classroom or the WhatsApp group that we have, and I'll we'll answer. We'll address everything there. Okay. If there's nothing else, we can wrap up. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you, everyone. Ji. Have a great day.